everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am here to talk to you today about a book series that I had a lot of mixed feelings about that I read during the month of December. The first book is called A Winter's Promise. It is part of the Mirror Visitor Quartet. It is from Christelle Dabos. It is a book that was translated from French, so hopefully a lot of the translations hold true. I have no way of telling. I do not speak French. I felt very differently about the books themselves within the quartet. The first book is A Winter's Promise, like I had said. So this book follows a girl named Ophelia, who is one of the residents of an ark. So the premise of the book is that the world was one, and then God had grown jealous of the people within that world and felt like their children and the people there were not able to fully satisfy him or fulfill him. And God went ahead and did something stupid, as the fragments say, and basically imploded the earth into multiple arcs. And then each of God's children deities were to oversee that arc. And a lot of the deities themselves are reminiscent of different gods and deities within different cultures. So one of them is like Odin. You have different Greek gods. You even have some Egyptian gods and some other different mythological gods there that they named. The one that Ophelia is from, the ark, is called Anima and is overseen by the deity Artemis. And all of the descendants of that deity have certain traits from her or certain gifts. One of the gifts that she has is the Mirror Visitor gift, where she's able to transport herself and travel through mirrors depending on the distance between the mirrors' locations to each other. So she's able to basically travel through mirrors at will. There is a trick that is explained throughout the series about being able to do that, which she ends up looking at later. The other gift that she has is that she's able to use her hands and basically read objects. She's able to read the thoughts and feelings of people that have previously held or owned that object. So she often is wearing her reader's gloves, as they say in the book, in order to prevent her from accidentally reading something. She does have a lot of professional integrity in this skill, and she goes out of her way to make sure she doesn't accidentally read something that might embarrass or incriminate someone by accident. So she is very particular about wearing her gloves. Basically, in this world, if you are not married and have children, or have attempted to be married and ended up widowed, just so her aunt was a widow that did not have kids, so her aunt became her godmother to oversee her in place of having children and getting remarried. But Ophelia has decided she does not want to get married. She does not want to live that kind of life. She wants to be a part of her museum and basically read primitive objects from before the world imploded and have her museum and live just a happy life with her and her scarf and just be there. Well, the representative of God / the deities that basically oversee the different islands, it's not really clear who they are at the beginning, except that they're very revered, and basically what they say goes. They end up marrying her into a political alliance with a treasurer from the Ark Pole in order to kind of bring Anima and Pole together in that alliance, because there has not been a lot of interactions with Pole itself with other regions. It is a very desolate, cold place. Not a lot of people survive. You have to be very cutthroat and sort of out for yourself in order to survive in that world. There are family factions on pole themselves, and each faction has a different gift from their deity. Their deity has several gifts that they have, and so each sort of family, one of them is the dragons that Thorn is from, have certain gifts. So like the dragons have claws that they use sort of behind the scenes that you don't see unless you have that gift. One of them are the mirages that they basically see each other, and so like the mirages are able to create illusions and things like that. So each family has different gifts that aren't fully explored, but the first book is basically her surviving when she goes to see Thorn to take her to the pole. He basically says, "You're not going to last the winter. You're too weak. This was a mistake. Like you're not going to last here. Like you're not cut out for this place." And so her promise is that she's going to basically make it through the winter. And so at least that's what I imagine from the book title. But she's out to prove Thorn wrong, that she can survive in this place, that she has what it takes to be who she is in a place that is trying to get rid of her because of who Thorn is in this world. He is the treasurer to the deity himself, and oftentimes the deity does not remember things. So he has people following him with notebooks that he writes in and different things that he's trying to remember. So I gave this one a 4-star. I thought the premise of the book was very good. I liked the idea of different deities and different arcs and alliances and the political behind the scenes things that are going on. The different families that are competing each other in order to exist, and her being herself. She is kind of hidden in plain sight throughout this time period, and it helps her to be able to form relationships with people within the story that if she had been who she really is, they would maybe not have even thought about having a relationship with her, either as like a friend or an acquaintance, or form relationships with people who probably would have done things that were not so great for her. To form friendships with people based on who she is as a person rather than her title, I felt like was a key thing in here. I gave it a 4-star. I even wrote for one of the reviews for this. I was like, I don't really know why I like this book. I probably will continue it. I did give it a 4-star. I feel like the book sold it as a romance type of a story. It talks about a political alliance marriage. She's going from a peaceful, dull life to a very tactical sort of lifestyle, trying to get through her day with her future husband. And it did not feel like there was even a lot of interactions besides the fact that a marriage was discussed. She honestly does not spend a lot of time with the main character that I feel like really left out that piece of the premise of the story. And even the interactions that are there, I do feel like built his character and solidified like who he is as a person. So I guess in the other way of that being an issue that I have, it shows where his character needs to grow. But I did not particularly like the dynamic of the lacking of situations where they are together. There is a lot of period of time between when she and when Ophelia and Thorne even spend time together. They do not spend a lot of time together in this book, which kind of upset me. But I liked the world. I liked the characters that were explored. I do like the premise, so I decided to keep going. So the second book, because I ended up reading it on audiobook, is called The Missing of Claire de Lune. So this might be where I start to get into some spoilers about the book, because as you go more into a series, it's kind of hard to not talk about things that happen in previous books that lead to certain things happening. So I'm going to try to be as spoiler free as possible while talking about the premise and things that I liked or didn't like about the book. So the second book was actually my favorite, The Missing of Claire de Lune. I did give it a 5 stars. I have to look up the the way that the books describe it. So the second book is The Missing of Claire de Lune. Claire de Lune is basically a mansion slash place. So Archibald was one of the characters that we grow to love because of his interaction with Ophelia at the start of their relationship. Is not really the best. He is definitely a character that I was very hesitant about when it first started, and then he grows this relationship with Ophelia when she is in disguise, which creates a different view of her to Archibald, and then their relationship as friends becomes a lot more enjoyable to read. So basically at the end of the first book, because of something that happens with Thorne's mother, who is currently housing Ophelia, Archibald goes ahead and makes a promise to the deity of their ark, the pole, that he will take on Thorne's mother and fiance and her aunt, who came with her, to basically help solidify their engagement until she is married, and house them at Claire de Lune. So she becomes a vice storyteller and investigates a series of disappearances, all while navigating her complex relationship with her fiance Thorne and uncovering deeper truths about her new home. The novel expands an intricate world building and political intrigue from the first book, focusing on Ophelia's unique ability to read the secret histories of objects as she uncovers a formidable conspiracy. So this one was actually my favorite book in the series. I did give it 5 stars, and I think it definitely deserves 5 stars. It definitely gave me a whodunit sort of storyline, very reminiscent of the game Clue. So it's like, here are the characters, and it's sort of like a closed house story because it all happens in Claire de Lune. So Claire de Lune is supposed to be a sanctuary place, and the Mirages, which is what Archibald is from, he's from the Mirage family, they all can see everything through each other's eyes, so nothing within the family that's going on is a secret. If it's happening in front of them, if it's spoken, then everyone in the Mirage family can hear and see what's going on. They can't necessarily understand what the other people are thinking, but it's a lot of memories and information that they never forget that happens in front of them. So the idea was that Claire de Lune is supposed to be this sanctuary, safe place because of the amount of mirages that are there, that are able to see and report everything, that nothing is private, everything is public within that family, not necessarily to people. Like they aren't going to share all that information to people who aren't part of that family, But the idea is that if something happens to someone in front of them, which they are everywhere, then they're going to know what happened. And so no one can do anything that they're not supposed to be doing without getting caught. So then the fact that all these disappearances are happening is creating a situation that Ophelia is trying to solve. But again, in this book, you don't really get to explore her relationship with Thorn. You don't get to really, there is times where you explore it. I definitely say they had a lot of the same amount of time spent together or expanding their relationship as they did in the first book. So I do have a lot of the same complaints as that of it's being sold as a romance sort of story, and we are now book 2, and each book is like a good 400-500 pages. So we're almost 1,000 pages into the series, and there's very little payoff for their relationship except for awkward interactions where they don't really talk about how they're feeling. So I do think that that is something that I do have a complaint about with the first and second book. I don't dislike their interactions. I think it is a very incredibly slow burn pacing, which is fine. But I feel like it could have gone a little bit faster with the amount of things that are going on. Their relationship is definitely one of sacrifice. So at this point, I loved the book, but it was definitely not romance driven like I had thought it might have been at that point because of how long the books are. So the Memory of Babel still continues. The whole series follows Ophelia throughout the entire time. She ends up traveling because of what ends up happening at the end of the second book basically separates her and Thorn, as well as removes them from the pole, even though I felt like it wasn't necessary. But I don't think it was necessary, but I do understand how it happened. So things that happen within the series, and I usually feel this way at some point with series or when the author is trying to force things to happen, where you go, well, that didn't need to happen, or that character, why was the character that stupid, or what never felt that way about anything that any of the characters do throughout this series, which I think says a lot. So her and Thorn end up getting separated and also removed from the pole. She ends up going back to Anima because of something that happens, and he disappears. No one can find him. So I think it's several years go by within the story itself. Ophelia then travels to a cosmopolitan arc of Babel under an assumed identity to use her unique reading abilities to uncover secrets that could change the past and future, all while evading dangerous adversaries and searching for her betrothed Thorn. So during things that happen within the first 2 books, she has this postcard of Babel, and she knows that Thorn's ultimate goal is something in particular, and she knows that it's going to lead him to Babel to do whatever he needs to do there to discover the truth of something from his past. And so several years goes by, and then she decides that she's not going to wait anymore. She's going to go ahead and go find him, and she knows it's in Babel. So she gets, I believe it's Archibald again. Archibald ends up being this really elusive, fun character, which he's definitely described as being so when we first meet him. But you just love this character. Like, he's just fun. And so he ends up, I believe it's him, ends up helping her get to Babel under another assumed identity and being part of this organization on Babel in order to search for Thorn, because she knows what his goal is and what he's trying to uncover within this arc. And she knows that Babel's the arc to do it on, and she knows she basically is going to go find him. The premise of this book is her integrating again into a society that does not want her in order to survive with the goal and intention of finding Thorn. I did like this book. It was different. I think I gave it 4 stars. Again, because she is finding Thorn, there is little to no romance going on in this book, which is fine. I don't need romance, but if part of the whole premise is that she has this relationship with him that drives her entire existence, it feels like there should have been more interactions. We did get some romance at the end of the second book, of them basically coming to terms with their relationship in general, and then they get separated. So there's little to no romance going on in here. I do like the new characters that were introduced in here. There was still a lot going on in the book. I think the pacing was perfect for the length of it. It was still a long book as well. Again, all of the books in the series are about 400 to 500 pages. And it felt like I didn't really have anything to complain about. I obviously continued listening to it on audiobook. I didn't have any issues with it. I liked the concept and the characters and the storyline and the plot. I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel like anyone was doing anything that led me to question the capacity of the characters. Like, sometimes you'll read something again and think, why would the character, the author obviously made this happen in order to make X, Y, and Z happen later, and you just have to accept whatever happens in order for something else to happen. I didn't feel that way at all. It felt like everything naturally happened on its own, and that everything that was going on within the plot was a logical move on the part of the character within the story. The fourth book was The Storm of Echoes, and it follows Ophelia and Thorn. So finally, in the fourth book, you get interactions with Ophelia and Thorn that make sense after they have already come to terms with their relationship and they have professed themselves to each other and they are now a team. Now you get to see them work together. So it is a very slow burn throughout the first 3 books to get to this point. Again, it's not super heavy on the romance. There's not a whole lot of romance itself going on, but a lot of their dynamic is fun to read. So it follows Ophelia and Thorn as they uncover the truth behind the mysterious other and the destruction of the arcs, leading them to a secret institute where they hope to restore balance for their world. The book concludes the saga focusing on the couple's love and their efforts to decipher a code and stop the chaos, facing terrifying experiments in a life and death game at the Observatory of the Deviations. So it does take place mainly within an institution. This was my least favorite book, even though we finally got the payoff of the romance between the two of them. I did not much like this one. I gave it a 3 stars. I would read it again just because it is the finality of a series that I can't explain why I liked it so much. And I kept saying that throughout the entire series. Once I would finish each book, I don't know why I like this so much, but I did. I liked the plot pacing. I liked the character developments. I liked the premise. I liked the magic system in a way. I thought everyone, all the characters were very well developed, and there was a lot of mystery elements into it that I'm not used to having in books. And it was a very good fantasy story. The fourth one, though, there was more romance in this one, which was a complaint I had in the other three. And it definitely paid off in that aspect. But I felt like a lot of the things within the second half of the plot were either jumbled, or there could have been more time spent on different things. A lot of things got confusing. And I don't know if it was because of the pacing or the way things were explained, or just the fact that it was so multidimensional in each part of the situation that had multiple parts. So it's not that I got confused. Like, I think I could be able to talk to someone about the intricacies of the premise of the situation and the echoes and the storyline and the multiple timelines and the different things like that. I'm trying not to give away too much, so I don't want to do a lot of spoilers about that. It did feel like it was a little jam-packed, though. I felt like that part of the plot needed to be a little bit slower and maybe more explained or fleshed out as part of a magic system and part of this world and part of understanding why different things are happening. I feel like it was fleshed out enough to understand the characters within the situation, but the situation itself is complex in a way that I felt like should have been more explained. So it was my least favorite book of the quartet. The Missing of Claire de Lune was definitely my favorite, even though it had very little romance up until the end, and I was sort of sold on it as a fantasy, not a romantasy, but I was sold on it as a fantasy book with an element of enemies to lover marriage. So just their interactions, there were more interactions that were more geared to understanding their feelings about the relationship. So, and it was sort of like a murder mystery sort of book, which I'm not used to reading, but I really enjoyed it. So overall, the first and third book, they were okay. I gave them 4 stars. Second book was my favorite. I gave it 5 stars. The last book, I gave it 3 stars because it was okay. It finished a series. Yeah. So those are my thoughts on the Mirror Visitor Quartet. Let me know if you've read it. It is a translation from French, so if you're looking for a translated book, was a very good series. Again, I was able to find the entire series in one audiobook on my library's app, so that was how I was able to get through a lot of it. So let me know your thoughts, comments, if you felt the same, if you felt like I went, If maybe I'm misrepresenting certain parts of the book, let me know. I know a lot of people liked all of the books, and some of them only liked the first couple. When I was looking up some of the reviews from other people who maybe read the French version as well as the English version, that was the consensus that I saw too, was that a lot of people liked the second book and felt like that's where the series had peaked. And then they just slowly did not appreciate the other two books. So let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time.